The marble floors of Helix Corp gleamed like cold water under museum lights, spotless, untouchable. Somewhere between the pristine silence and the soft hum of morning elevators, a mop moved in steady arcs. Her name was Elena Ruiz, but few knew that, to most, she was the soft shuffle of souls behind a glass door, the hand that refilled paper towels, the ghost who erased smudges from windows before the boardroom filled with people too busy to see her. Swish, swish. One executive once forgot to mute a global Zoom call. Elena answered in fluent Mandarin, then went back to mopping. No one mentioned it afterward. Maybe they thought they imagined it, or maybe they just chose not to know, because knowing would make her real. They liked her better invisible. At Helix Corp, visibility was currency. It gleamed on LinkedIn profiles, in the cadence of confident handshakes, in the crispness of power suits that whispered success. Here, everyone moved with urgency, aiming higher, louder, faster. Elena moved quietly. She passed through the corridors like dusk, noticed only in the way light changed around her. The staff called her Miss Mop in the break room, giggling over flat lattes and complaints about mental health days being too short. When she bent to pick up a dropped brochure, Global Leadership Through Multilingual Innovation, an intern sneered, "She probably thinks bonjour is a shampoo." Laughter bounced off the glass walls. Elena didn't flinch. Her smile was soft, almost imperceptible, like an afterthought in a song. But later, when the building finally went still, Elena sat in the break room with a tattered notebook. On its cover, fading flag stickers peeling at the corners. Her fingers traced their outlines like old maps. Inside were pages of verbs, dialogues, idioms, German tongue twisters, Farsi poetry, Korean formalities. Her pen moved as if chasing breath, urgently, patiently. No mentors, no tuition, no spare time. Just an old phone, earbuds, and a will sharpened by necessity. Years ago, she'd left her graduate thesis half-finished, traded academic debate for supermarket night shifts. Her son had been sick. There was no family, no safety net. Just her. But she never stopped learning. Language became her rebellion, her prayer, her anchor. When others streamed Netflix, she whispered Portuguese conjugations while bleaching the toilets. When others slept, she recited Arabic greetings between cycles of the industrial washer. The janitor's cart held bleach, gloves, and a laminated list of safety protocols. But in her mind held nations, accents, the sound of bridges being built, word by word. Still, Helix Corp never saw her, not really. It saw a uniform. It saw calloused hands. It saw someone who refilled water bottles, not someone who could broker peace between cultures. But that was about to change. Soon, someone would really see. And once they did, Elena Ruiz would no longer be the woman with the mop. It happened on a Tuesday, not the kind of day anyone remembers. Gray sky, muted sunlight, that stale post-lunch heaviness that settles over office floors like a sleeping fog. The CEO, Victor Hale, was making his rounds. This was rare. He usually stayed locked on the top floor behind walls of brushed steel and biometric scanners. Rumor had it he didn't shake hands. Germs and wasted time, someone had said. But this Tuesday, something made him step into the elevator and descend. No entourage, no memo. Just a coffee cup in one hand and a restless look in his eye. The elevator doors opened to B2, maintenance and logistics. A place that didn't usually receive visits from the highest office in the building. Victor stepped out and immediately frowned at the sight before him. Two engineers from a Japanese vendor company, standing stiff and confused by the fire exit, pointing at their phones, speaking quickly in clipped, urgent Japanese. The receptionist was flustered. Useless. The head of facilities was unreachable. And then, from behind the vending machine, a soft voice. "Sumimasen, kochira no chiduan ha kongshichung desu. Arabeda wo shiatta hoga anzen desu?" "Excuse me, this staircase is under maintenance. It's safer to use the elevator." The Japanese men turned, startled. Then, relieved nods, grateful smiles. Elena stepped forward slowly, still, wearing gloves. Her eyes calm, voice steady. She directed them with a grace that didn't fit her uniform. Victor stared. "Who are you?" he asked, not harshly, just genuinely unable to place her. Elena glanced up. "Just a custodian, sir." Victor didn't move. He switched to French. "Et vous parlez japonais, et le français aussi, peut-être?" She answered without missing a beat. "Oui, monsieur, et un peu d'allemand si c'est nécessaire." Blinked. A pause opened between them, long, tense, and filled with the sound of janitorial carts squeaking down the hallway. Then without another word, he said, "Come with me." The next morning, the building buzzed with something new. Elena, the janitor, had been summoned to the 52nd floor. The elevator ride alone was a kind of ascent no one had ever imagined for her. She stood before the glass wall of the CEO's office, shoulders back, face still. The skyline behind her stretched like an empire, silver, unreachable. Victor sat across from her, arms folded, eyes searching. "I want to understand," he said. "You speak how many languages?" "9. "Fluently," she replied, a few more conversationally. He leaned forward. "And how?" She took a breath, not to explain but to contain. "My son needed care. I had to drop out of grad school. There wasn't time for classroom learning anymore, so I learned while scrubbing floors, while feeding him, while waiting in hospital lobbies." Victor didn't interrupt. "I memorized Spanish lullabies during diaper changes, learned Polish sentence structure between laundry cycles. I whispered Arabic into the steam of boiling rice." She looked out the window. Her voice dipped to a whisper. "Languages were the only part of me that kept growing when everything else shrank." Victor was quiet. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. A short, sharp exhale. "You just broke HR's brain," he said. Later that afternoon, a new internal announcement flashed across every employee's screen. "We are pleased to announce the appointment of Elena Ruiz as Helix Corp's new International Cultural Advisor." The message came with a photo. Elena, still in her blue shirt, standing beside Victor, looking slightly uncertain but unshakably calm. The internal forums exploded. "Wait, the janitor? I thought this was satire. This has to be some weird internal campaign, right?" Whispers turned to full-throated cynicism. At lunch, people pointed. Some rolled their eyes. Others posted memes of Cinderella, holding a clipboard in a boardroom. Even the nice ones said it with a smile too wide to be kind. Good for her, but I mean, really? What's her actual experience? But Elena didn't respond. Not online, not in whispers. Instead, she walked into her new office, small, windowless, but hers, and opened her notebook. There was work to be done. The first week in her new role, Elena could feel eyes following her like shadows on glass. Not eyes of admiration. Not yet. They watched her like you watch a sudden crack in the marble floor. Suspicious, silent, wondering when, not if, she would break. She no longer wore her blue janitor's uniform, but in the minds of many it still clung to her like an invisible second skin. Her new ID badge with the words International Cultural Advisor stamped in bold looked out of place, like a sticker on a relic. Even the printer stuttered when processing her title. Helix Corp's corridors, once so silent to her presence, now pulsed with thinly veiled whispers. She's not C-suite material. I bet she's just Victor's diversity puppet. Wait until she mispronounces something in front of the Germans. The old Elena might have walked past, silent, smiling. But this Elena paused outside. The elevator turned her head slowly and said in perfect German, "Ich höre besser, wenn man denkt, ich höre nicht." I hear best when people think I'm not listening. The intern who'd spoken froze. She entered the elevator and the doors closed with a whisper. Her first meeting came like a wave. 12 executives, 3 global partners, 1 CEO. The topic, a fraught negotiation with a South Korean tech firm. The relationship was fraying. Mistranslations, cultural missteps, unspoken disrespect. Millions at risk. Elena sat at the table's far end. No one looked at her. One director had even handed her a water bottle on the way in, assuming she was part of hospitality. Victor opened the floor. "We need a cultural reset with Daesung Group," he said. "We've got 3 days before they walk." Silence. Then, Elena spoke. "I've reviewed all communication transcripts. Our tone in emails was too aggressive, and we've overlooked the importance of indirect agreement in their hierarchy. We're asking junior staff for confirmations. They see that as disrespect." A murmur. Someone laughed quietly. "You read all the transcripts?" She nodded. "And I've spoken to their liaison, in Korean." He was relieved someone finally asked him in his own language. The room shifted. "Let me handle the call," she said. Alone. Skepticism rippled like wind across water. But Victor said nothing. He just nodded. The call was scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8:58, Elena stepped into the room, wearing a charcoal blouse and an air of calm that unnerved even the projector. The screen lit up. Daesung Group's delegation appeared stiff and unsmiling. Elena bowed slightly, both physically and linguistically. "안녕하세요. 제 이름은 엘레나 루이즈입니다. 오늘 시간 내주셔서 감사합니다." "Hello. My name is Elena Ruiz. Thank you for taking the time today." The ice cracked. She didn't just translate. She interpreted silence, understood the pause between syllables. She redirected miscommunications, softened edges, built bridges with words chosen not from dictionaries but from empathy. The deal was salvaged. More than that, it was revived. Daesung Group agreed to extend the partnership and even proposed a cross-cultural exchange initiative. When the call ended, Victor didn't smile. He only said, "That was the cleanest fix we've had in 5 months," and walked out. But peace was short-lived. The next week, a blunder exploded internally. A contract translated for a German client had a clause flipped, changing limited liability to unlimited liability, a catastrophic risk. The blame fell on Elena. Quietly, strategically, someone had used her account to submit the file. A mistake, it seemed. Only, she hadn't touched it. She pulled the logs, cross-referenced, timestamps, created a full trail. Then, without anger or accusation, she printed it, handed it to HR, and returned to her work. No press release, no rage, just proof. The saboteur resigned 2 days later. People stopped whispering after that. They started watching. Really, watching. Then came the Morocco meeting. Helix Corp was on the verge of entering the North African market, but cultural friction threatened the launch. A single misstep, an email about changing their systems to match ours, had nearly tanked the entire initiative. Elena was asked to fly with Victor, not as support, as lead liaison. The Moroccan executives arrived in white linen suits, the scent of saffron and oud clinging to their clothes like stories. They were courteous, cautious, unimpressed. Victor spoke. Numbers, strategy, charts. Then at the moment when tension tightened like a bowstring, Elena stood. She stepped forward, hands open, and in gentle, unhurried Moroccan Arabic she said, "My grandmother used to tell me a story of a traveler who crossed the desert, not by knowing the stars, but by listening to the wind. I didn't come to bring our stars. I came to hear your wind." The room fell still. Then came a nod, then two, and then agreement. That night, back in her hotel room, Elena sat alone on the balcony, her old notebook on her lap. The wind whispered through the linen curtains. The city below pulsed with lights. But she wasn't looking at them. She was writing, still learning, still listening. But now, finally, the world was listening too. The first time someone asked Elena for advice, not as a curiosity, not as an obligation, but as a colleague, she didn't answer right away. She blinked, because something had changed. The man asking was Gareth, senior legal counsel, a man known for interrupting interns mid-sentence and correcting people's grammar with a smirk. Now he stood at her office door, not smug, not performative, just curious. "I don't get the Vietnamese tone system," he admitted, gesturing to the training manual. "Can you help?" Elena set down her pen. Then she nodded, and just like that, something cracked, quietly, but permanently, in the architecture of Helix Corp. Her presence no longer made the air stiff. Her name was no longer followed by asterisks and raised eyebrows. Instead, it began appearing on emails as "Loop Elena in on this," and "Let's check with Elena first." But not everyone celebrated the shift. Some resisted harder. At a quarterly town hall, one executive, older, clean-shaven, brittle, stood during Q&A and asked, "Don't you think it's risky, putting someone without a formal HR background in charge of cross-cultural dynamics?" The room froze. Eyes flicked between him and Victor, who sat at the edge of the stage. Elena didn't wait for Victor. She rose slowly, her voice calm, no mic needed. "With respect, I'm not in charge of people. I'm in charge of perception. My job is not to supervise, it's to listen, interpret, and bridge. If we reduce international culture to bullet points in a PowerPoint, we lose the soul behind the contract." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. The applause was hesitant at first. Then it grew. Even Victor clapped. After that, no. One questioned her right to be in the room. But the real reversal came quietly, without spotlights or press. It came in a meeting with the learning and development team. They were reviewing internal upskilling budgets. Traditional metrics ruled. Courses from top universities, MBA sponsorships, high-potential lists drawn from performance reviews. Elena listened. Then she asked one question. "How do we define potential here?" A pause. "Well, we look at trajectory, results, upward mobility." Elena raised her hand gently. "What if potential isn't vertical? What if it's hidden under uniforms, inside stories we never ask about?" The silence was heavier this time. Then she opened her notebook, the same one she'd used in the janitor's break room. It was worn. Its edges curled like dried petals. Inside were profiles she had quietly built over the months. Cleaners who spoke 5 languages, cafeteria staff with accounting degrees, security guards who once ran logistics teams in their home countries. People who clocked in through back entrances and left unnoticed through side doors. "We're sitting on a gold mine," she said. "We've just never turned on the light." Victor, listening from the side, said 3 words. "Build a program." And she did. The program launched quietly. No press release, just an email. Talent. Within, nominate yourself. Nominate another. It offered mentorship, language support, project shadowing. No titles required. No degree barriers. Just a question. What do you want to learn next? Within 2 weeks, over 300 people applied. The first to complete the program, a parking garage attendant from the night shift. He now ran supply chain audits across 3 countries. The second, a receptionist who'd studied economics in Syria before the war. She now led regional data forecasting. The ripple kept growing. By the end of the quarter, Helix Corp wasn't just functioning, it was transforming. And through it all, Elena remained where she'd always been, in the background, watching, guiding. But now, when she walked the hallways, people didn't avert their gaze. They nodded. They smiled. They saw her. One evening, Victor stopped by her office. He leaned in the doorway, holding a small box. "I found this in the archive," he said. "It's yours." She opened it. Inside was her original janitor ID badge. Victor nodded toward it. "Frame it, remind them where we started." She looked down at it, not with shame, not with nostalgia, but with reverence. Because in that plastic rectangle was not just where she'd been, but how far Helix Corp had come. Not by rushing forward, but by pausing, listening, re-seeing. A year passed, not quickly, but with the slow grace of something deeply earned. The building was the same. Glass, steel, marble. The floors still shone. The elevators still whispered. But there was something in the air now, recognition, like a fragrance that clung to the skin of the culture and refused to fade. It started in small ways. The man in shipping who used to eat lunch alone now taught beginner Swahili to a circle of volunteers. The cafeteria began labeling meals in 3 languages. And every menu came with a short cultural story. An engineer from Serbia, who had been quietly brilliant for 5 years without notice, was promoted after his application, once filtered out for lack of soft skills, was reevaluated through the talent within program. No one used the term janitor anymore like it meant less. That word now carried a second meaning, and at the heart of it all, Elena Ruiz moved like she always had, quietly, attentively, without the need to announce herself. But now, she didn't move alone. She moved within a current she had helped create. On a Wednesday morning, she stepped into the largest conference room on the 48th floor. The room was filled. Employees, partners, new hires, veterans, even competitors from other firms invited to learn from the talent within model. The lighting was soft, golden. Cameras were rolling for a live stream across all Helix Corp's global branches. Victor stood first. "I've made a lot of decisions in this company," he said, eyes scanning the room. Some were bold, some were calculated, but one changed. Everything. He turned toward Elena, and it wasn't mine, it was hers. Applause rose, honest, deep, layered with something more than admiration. Gratitude. Elena stepped forward. She didn't bring a speech. She brought her notebook. It was the same notebook, now rebound in soft leather. Its cover freshly stitched, but its pages still frayed. She held it in both hands like a storybook. "When I first entered this building," she began, "I was asked to be invisible." She let the silence land. To clean quietly, move out of the way, listen without speaking. She looked around, not just at the C-suite, but at the custodian standing at the back of the room, arms folded, watching her like she was the moon. "I learned to listen not as a servant, but as a student." She turned a page in her notebook. "This is where I stored my education. Not in a classroom, but between mop strokes, between languages, between jobs and night shifts." A tear slid down someone's cheek in the front row. "People often ask me now, how did I go from janitor to advisor? And I tell them I never stopped being either." More applause, but softer now, not for the show, for the truth. She continued, "We're told success looks a certain way, tidy, polished, decorated with degrees. But sometimes success looks like resilience you can't frame, knowledge you learn in the dark, strength you carry in silence." She closed the notebook. "Let's stop looking only up when we search for talent. Look across, look beneath, look where you haven't before. That's where change waits." Standing ovation. And in the back of the room, someone whispered, "She speaks like she's always belonged here." And someone else replied, "No, she speaks like she built this place." That evening, she walked through the building one last time as the sun dipped low, streaking gold through the windows. She passed the janitor's closet. The smell of bleach and pine cleaner still clung to the edges. She opened it briefly, smiled at the faint scrape of the mop bucket wheels still etched into the floor. Then she stepped onto the elevator. She pressed the button for the top floor, but not for a meeting, for a view. From the rooftop, the city sprawled out below her, languages flowing in traffic noise, in neon signs, in murmured conversations between food vendors. The wind touched her face. She didn't need the applause. She didn't need the titles. She had something better. She had witnessed transformation, not just in herself but in others, and in a system that, once blind, had begun, finally, to see. A month later, a new program launched, Whisper Networks, a mentorship series for under-recognized talent, named in honor of those who carry their brilliance quietly, waiting for someone to listen. And on the bottom of every flyer was a quote from Elena. "Some people shine under spotlights, others glow in the dark. Both deserve to be seen." If this story moved you, even just a little, please consider sharing it. Somewhere out there, someone like Elena is quietly holding the world together, waiting to be seen. And if you'd like more stories that honor quiet strength, hidden brilliance, and second chances, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring light to those still in the shadows.